Here. Okay, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. Today is March 23rd, 2021. This is a meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee, and we are still conducting our meetings virtually pursuant to the Governor's executive orders. If I could ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Mr. Glassbod?
Here.
Mrs. Hildebrand? Here. Mrs. Hoskins?
Here.
Mrs. Lima?
Here.
Mr. Mather?
Here.
Mrs. Schott?
Here.
Mr. Sidor?
He might not be unmuted. Sorry, let me fix that. Oh, there's always so many names here. Sorry. Okay, got him.
Here.
Thank you, Jacob. Sorry. And Owen, let me get you next.
Are you there?
Owen, you good?
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you, Owen.
And if you could please call the calendar.
Okay, so our next school committee business meeting will be April 13th, and then April 19th to the 23rd is our spring recess no school.
Thank you very much. So next on our agenda, we have a couple presentations and recognitions. First up will be Mr. Waterman. So I will hand things over to you with an information technology update.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. I have a quick slideshow that I'm going to put up. So if you can let me know once you can see it.
I see it.
Perfect. So each year I come to you and do a brief presentation on kind of where we've been over the past year or two and then kind of where we're going. So this is this year's rendition. So in the past year, we have, last May, we purchased 2,500 Lenovo Chromebooks, which were issued to students in grades 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. And we also matched those new Chromebooks with new Chromebook carts for kids in grades 1 and 2. And then for the first time this year, we issued Chromebooks to students in grade K. And we actually issued 2 sets of devices to students in grade K. Once we had done our initial refresh, we sent home a second device. With our smallest kids, there was some concern if in the moment we had to move to distance learning. There was some concern about them having to bring home books and the second device, so we just sent them home with a device that they can keep at home. We also purchased and replaced all of our staff Chromebooks, which were ordered. Those were again ordered back in May. And then you'll see my note, they were ordered in July, and then they were ordered in December. So our reason was our initial order in May was canceled, and then we replaced the order in July, and that order got hung up somewhere overseas. So we were able to get in contact with a vendor who had the device actually in stock. They had, our order was for 450, and they had 515 sitting on the shelf. So we were able to quickly organize an order and get those devices in, and they were deployed over the winter break as well as the first couple of weeks of January. All of our teacher assistants were issued the older generation Chromebooks, so the Chromebooks that we had collected were all issued to our teacher assistants who were in need of one. Clerical and non-certified administration were issued laptops back in the spring so that they could work from home, and then again in the event of a weekend school closure, they would be able to continue doing their work and continue school functions remotely. And then administrators' laptops were refreshed over the summer. So what I'm coming to you with tonight is a request to put out to bid, and I'm not asking you to make a purchase. What I'm asking tonight is to put out an RFP, and I'll come back to you with hard and fast dollar amounts where I will officially seek your approval to make the purchase. But what I'm looking for is to maintain. Last year I kind of spoke to you about getting us to a to a predictable refresh cycle where every student has their Chromebook, a brand new Chromebook issued to them in grade 1, 6, and 9. And if you recall, there were going to be a couple funny years where we weren't going to be able to, roll this out over 1 year. So last year we took a big step, and I'm asking us to take our next big step, which will get us into this predictable cycle. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to issue an RFP for 450 laptops to go to our teaching staff, our certified staff. The 450 laptops will allow every staff member to have a laptop. It will also allow us a few spare laptops to have in case the teacher's out sick and has their laptop at home, so we can issue it to a sub, as well as some break-fix loaners. I'd be looking to phase out the classroom desktops. So right now, every teacher has a Chromebook and then a desktop in their classroom. This plan would be phasing those out. So anybody who's here listening to this, I'm not saying this summer we're pulling all the computers out of the classroom. This would be 3 to 5 years from now, because we're still in a viable life cycle of our current desktops. This would be this is more a 3 to 5 year plan. Laptops do not require as frequent refreshers as Chromebooks do. Chromebooks have a set end life on them, whereas laptops tend to function longer. For example, the laptops that are non-certified staff, our secretaries, central office staff members who had to work remotely, those laptops are all 5.5 to 6 years old. They were purchased in 2015. And there's not that one issue with one of those. I'd like to get 300 two-in-one Chromebooks, so specifically for our kindergarten kids. And those Chromebooks, we just sent a demo around to all the kindergarten teachers, or to all the schools so the kindergarten teachers could see them. But they're a little bit different, so they can act as a traditional Chromebook, but they also have the flexibility to rotate 360 degrees and then act as a tablet as well. So one of the issues that's come to light this year is the K students are having trouble clicking and then dragging or highlighting. This would aid them in that. And then about 1,000 Chromebooks to finish our deployment, so that all students would have a Chromebook that is less than a year old, and that would allow us to get into a cycle. Next year we'd finally be looking at 2 grade levels in these devices, and then we could get into that predictable 1, 6, 9. I would take the current staff Chromebooks that were just issued at the end of December and January, and I would issue those devices to our current juniors. The timing on exactly when they would get those newer devices would be dependent on when the laptops come in and are able to be distributed. But my target, my goal, pending any delays, would be hopefully by the end of this school year to have the junior devices flipped out as well. There are currently still extreme delays of getting devices. We're still looking at 2 to 3 months. So one of the stipulations I would put on this RFP would be for some type of guaranteed delivery. One of the issues that we've learned over the last year is that dependent on the, and I promise I won't get too technical here, depending on the type of processor that is in the device, is having a huge impact on how that device functions. So in January of this year, 2021, Google came out where they ranked Chromebooks. What Chromebooks are good for remote learning, what Chromebooks are good for more of your traditional classroom learning. We've all, I'm sure many members of the committee, and anyone who's here in this meeting is either a teacher or a student, has experienced some frustrations while trying to be in a live Google Meet and then trying to work, whether it's on a website, in Canvas, in Google Classroom, multiplying tabs while being in a live meet. And it doesn't matter if it's Zoom or Google Meet, they're choking the Chromebooks. And what we learned in January is that has everything to do with the processor. So in my RFP, I would be requesting a specific brand of processor, which is the Intel processor, and that aligns with what Google has ranked as kind of the device that should be used in both an in-person and or possibly a remote session. So the Chromebooks we would collect back from the staff would be redistributed to both the juniors, and because there are more devices than there are juniors, we would also backfill those devices into our teacher assistants. And then after our current junior class, who I started calling the class of 2023 now in this presentation, those would then go into our loaner carts so that we would still have devices available that are on the newer side, as we have to keep devices, so these devices all have an expiration date. These staff devices would allow us multiple years of loaners, so that nothing would go to waste. And then I would also consider, last year I came to you at this time asking for a 3-year commitment to Go Guardian. At the same time, we were simultaneously working with the Tech Collaborative, which is a nationwide organization on data privacy agreements. And what we've learned going back to last April, one of our products that we use regularly in the district, Go Guardian, they are unable or unwilling to sign a data privacy agreement that aligns with Rhode Island state law. So a competitor to this product is Securely. They have a lot of great features. So I'd like to do an RFP to come back to you to get to bring them into the district. So I refreshed that chart that I showed you last year. I did bring this out to a 10-year cycle. So I'll give you a minute to kind of take this in. You can see where we go into refreshing the kindergarten devices every 4 years. Once we get into the cycle, which we're really in the cycle in FY24, I know it's a couple years from now, but you can see where we get into this predictable cycle of grade 1, 6, and 9. But you can also see what I've tried to do is stagger the purchasing of laptops so that, you know, in 1 year of our refresh, we might buy it for the high school staff, and then down the road, the following year would be middle school, the year after that would be elementary. This way, I'm not coming to the school committee with large requests, and we're able to work it into the general budget. So, before I move on, I have one more slide after this, and it's going to kind of shift, so I want to pause to see if there's any questions regarding devices, because then I'm going to talk about our webpage.
Any questions at all?
I have a question.
Ms. Hernandez?
So I maybe it's a clarification. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. You're moving the certified teaching staff away from the Chromebooks to a laptop instead. Is that right? Even if they got a new Chromebook this year, they're all going to get new laptops.
They're going to get new laptops, and we're going to redistribute the Chromebooks that they just received. We're going to redistribute those to the juniors.
Okay. And you also said moving away from the desktop computers that are in the classrooms. Because I heard a couple stories of some teaching faculty that are like, have a Chromebook, have their personal laptop, have the desktop computer, and they're having to like toggle between all three. So your thought is if we give them the laptop and remove the desktop from the classroom, that will be better for them.
What I would be looking to do once we get into the point where the desktops are obsolete, I'd still want to leave a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, so that they could work in there. They would actually have both the laptop screen and the monitor screen. I would probably be coming to you for approval to purchase newer monitors that would be compatible. So many of our classroom monitors, they were there from probably a computer or two ago, and they just, the plugs are still compatible. However, none of those new plugs will be compatible, so we'd probably be looking at getting them a nice size monitor, matched up with a keyboard, a mouse. They make docking stations or port replicators that allow you to do a single plug, and we're using some in the district. I am having an issue with them as far as dependency. So I'm not ready to say I want to put a docking station in each classroom until I'm confident that they're going to be a reliable solution. But what I would be very, very happy to commit to would be a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, so that they could have two screens, the laptop screen and the external, as well as a full-size keyboard with a number pad and an external mouse, so that you don't have to worry about scrolling over. Any connections to displays, part of this is one step into, I'll be coming to you next year with a 5-year capital improvement plan. Our current capital improvement plan is in its final year, so I'll be coming to you with some more ideas next year. So I don't want to speak to anything that could be coming, but we'll be looking at refresh of projectors or TVs. You know, that's kind of some of the decisions that the tech committee is going to make. So none of that stuff has been defined, but we want to ensure compatibility with all of those displays.
One more quick question. Securely versus the Go Guardian. If we move to Securely, you have a way to push that out to all of the Chromebooks?
Yes, so we are already piloting it, and so it's on our Chromebooks. We just don't have it activated on the student Chromebooks because we have it activated on a subset of test student Chromebooks. So our Chrome world is broken into organizational units, you know, as far as staff and student, and then high school, middle school, elementary, that's broken down by school and then by grade. We have what we call test OUs, or test organizational units, where we put kids, and then we also assign ourselves as teachers so we can say, okay, what does it look like when we block a website? What does it look like when we disable the keyboard or shut off the mouse? One of the features I'm most excited about that Go Guardian has not been able to offer us yet is Securely has a parent portal, and I'll talk much more about Securely when I come to you for renewal. But so the school department is required to filter what SIPA defines as an appropriate content. Many times parents find more content inappropriate than SIPA defines, and we're regulated on this Rhode Island general law regarding what we're allowed to filter. When a district filters, the ACLU views it as a violation of civil rights. But when a teacher filters devices that are in their classroom, it's more like classroom management. So what I apply are blanket policies. What Securely and Go Guardian allow the teachers to do is to further refine this. Securely offers a parent piece where the parents can also further refine the filtering that happens inside their house. And that's something we have not had, and I hope to have in full effect for the fall if we do move forward with Securely.
Okay.
So I'll be more than happy to talk more about all those features when I come to you for an approval.
Any other questions? Okay, I think we're good, Mr. Waterman.
So I've got one more slide. The next thing, what you do have on your agenda for tonight for approval is approval of Apogee as our webpage provider. 2 years ago, we started a relationship with Apogee, and they actually offer the district an app, and they also do all of our background emergency communications. So both emergency and non-emergency notifications, I should say. So those snow cancellations that you get that now match the home language. You may not be aware of this, but whatever the home language is, the families now receive that message. So I know there's a very small subset of people who are disappointed not to hear my voice anymore. You now hear a robotic voice. But if you have a language other than English, you will get that announcement in the native language that matches Aspen. So that was a great improvement that they didn't offer until this year. So we aligned the Apogee contract to end at the same time as our EdLeo contract is ending. We've had a very good relationship with EdLeo. We're happy with their product. There's one or two areas that we wish we had a little more direct impact on the webpage. For example, when we have to update the school calendar, you'll notice there's always a delay in that because we don't actually have access to that part of the webpage. We have to send it off to their tech support, and they do the upload. Apogee allows us to edit all parts of the webpage. Instead of having to post announcements in two places, it would be one post, and it would feed all the content directly there. So it will help with timely communications. And there are just sometimes that the school calendar changes so much in January and February. I'll remember to post it in one place, but we'll forget to post it in another. So this takes away that issue. So pricing is aligned. There's no cost increase, and our pricing is locked into what we've been both paying with EdLeo and what we would have been paying and we switched a couple of years back. The prices have increased. They said it was 15% since we joined, but we're locked into when we first entered into a contract. So I'm not sure if there's any questions or if you want to see, and this is just a mock-up, so this is not the final product, there's still color alterations, but I'm just going to give you a quick tour of what our new webpage will look like. Are there any questions before I do so?
Yeah, I have a quick question, Mike. On the agenda reporting form, it says that there's a financial impact of $16,500, and I've noticed that's the base price of the web hosting that you wanted to use. But is that so? But what you just said is that there's an offset because we're no longer paying for Edleo, correct?
So we've been paying $8,500 for Apogee and then $8,000 for Edleo. So there's no additional cost. So we'd be dropping Edleo and adding Apogee. So it's a net neutral cost.
That makes sense. So there really isn't a financial impact.
I apologize. Under financial impact, I just put that it was budgeted for. It was within budget. So my apologies.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So without further ado. So one of the things I asked them about, and you'll see the first thing is doesn't have a pop-up. So clearly this is the demonstration showing that we can have a pop-up message for those really important announcements. And then we kind of went a similar feel because, like I mentioned, we like our webpage. We did make that first photo smaller so we could put some introductory text to the left of it. We kept the same top part. We've got our news and our events. Our live feed, which is a way to post news right through the Apogee app. You can also at the same time post to Facebook and Twitter. You can do pop-up alerts. So it's kind of like a text message for a device that's not cellular. So if you have a non-cellular laptop, you can get a pop-up notification or a push notification. A new section where we can highlight, we have the district has a program Shining Stars, where we highlight different staff members, students of the quarter. We now have an area where we can highlight that, and then just some more links. So very similar look and feel. They just did a mock-up for the district, but every school would have a site. The school sites would match the same color scheme that they have. It wouldn't be that drastic of a change because we're happy with the way our current web page is, and this is just to align our services to make getting information out quicker and smoother.
Mr. Waterman, I'd like to commend you on tonight's presentation and your leadership in this department. Looking at that chart that you put together with years of, renewals and all that, and referring to the 5-year plan that we have, I'm old enough to remember the years before we had a 5-year plan for technology, and things were not, as good in terms of the devices that our students and staff have and what we're capable of. And, the pandemic year really accelerated a lot of that and made it clear, how valuable it is to have this technology. So thank you for managing all that. When you think about, close to 5,000 people that you have to watch out for in terms of having this technology is a major, major task, and it's much appreciated. And about the Apogee webpage, I was a part of that with you just this week, working with people from Apogee, and really impressive product, really impressive that we have our own app and that this coordinates with that. We just see the communication improving all the way around because of this change, and it's not going to be costing us any more money. So really happy about that part too. So thank you.
And also thank you to the school committee for supporting these initiatives.
Yeah.
Each year you're very supportive when I come to you with these requests, so thank you.
Any final questions? All right, then I think we're good for now. Thank you, Mr. Waterman. Next presentation is from Denise Mansiri on the high-quality curriculum update.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Here I am again presenting about curriculum and where we are. just to keep you abreast. I am going to stop my video because sometimes my voice gets a little gravelly, and I'm going to share my screen. So just give me 1 moment. Okay. So just a quick review. The last time I was here was back in January, and we were talking about very similar things about the rollout of the high-quality curriculum. And I thought before I came back again, I'd give you an update of where we are. So if you take a look here over the overview, giving you an update on the curriculum implementation as it stands right now in 6 through 8 on ELA. Also the research that the 2 committees have done on math in 6 through 8, and then also on the ELA K through 5. And finally, talk a little bit about professional learning to support the high quality curriculum and the Right to Read Act legislation. This timeline should look very familiar for those people that have been attending the school committee meetings. It talks a little bit about, and it's just again to bring everybody, to ground everybody in the legislation that has been passed in Rhode Island, back in 2019. But really, the big thing is in June of 2023 is that all K through 12 in math and ELA will have high quality curriculum materials. We're well on our way, and that's why I've kind of done a timeline where we have to do this so that we can get things implemented. So we're going to continue on there. And the first one, this is the ELA implementation from grades 6 to 8. Remember, this is this last year was approved, and we received a grant also to help us support it over the next 4 years of $389,000. So that's really been helpful with our professional learning and the acquisition of materials. For those of you that aren't familiar, and if you're on here for the first time tonight, if you don't remember, the name of the curriculum is Expeditionary Learning, or formerly now they just go by the name EL. It comes with 4 modules, but this year, because we're in a COVID year, the teachers are rolling out 3 modules. There's Permabound anchor texts for each grade that were acquired through the grant, also print and digital materials, and detailed lessons. Along with the curriculum, we will not be rolling out anything in North Kingstown without providing support for the teachers to make sure that it's successful. So they have had bi-monthly common planning time support, whereby our high quality curriculum coordinator, Jody Clark, goes in and works with the teachers to unpack the lessons. We have grade level district planning meetings, 1-to-1 coaching cycles 3 times a year. The classroom walkthroughs, we did put a pause on that because of the COVID and what that meant for going to the classroom. So we're going to start that out next year. And then there's bi-weekly meetings of the implementation committee. So moving on to math, this will be coming up for next year. I'm just going to give you a heads up of where we are. So again, the priorities for math were to create a continuum for bridges. Again, for those of you with students in the upper grades in either the middle school or the high school, our math curriculum is called Bridges. And so it was really important to make sure that we're finding a curriculum that continues the great work that's going on at the elementary level from K to 5. Adaptive technology was another component that we wanted to make sure that was involved, and also that the vendors that we're choosing have supports for all learners, that everybody can access the curriculum. So just to give you a heads up, where we are right now, we have 2 pilots going on. We had vendor presentations on March 15th to the implementation group, and the teachers asked for, wanted to have a pilot because they're 2 very different curriculums. They're both very high quality. One is that more traditional and right now, and then one is a Carnegie pilot, which is a little bit different. So they're going to be done with both pilots by May 3rd. And so I'm also going to be coming back to the committee somewhere at the end of May to walk you through the final choices at the middle school level on the math. We continue. And now going to the ELA curriculum for K through 5. Again, just a reminder, the priorities for the elementary ELA adoption committee was integrated reading, writing, speaking, and listening instruction, strong foundational skills. It's very important, especially after this year that we just had, is to make sure that we can shore up our students and their foundational skills in K-3, a variety of authentic text and explicit writing instruction. So since the last time I saw you, on March 3rd, the implementation team met with 3 vendors. And then I can't see behind this, but one was L, which is the same company we're using at the middle school. The second was Wit and Wisdom, and the third one was Into Reading. After that date, they winnowed it down to either L or Wit and Wisdom. On March 8th through the 12th, the curricula were at all of the schools. It was really tough because the teachers, the vendors are not going to give us everything. They're going to give us pieces of it, right? But the teachers want everything to be able to do a really good job to look through it. So fortunately, we had access to different videos, and we had access to the online curriculum, so that any teacher that had the time that wanted to go through that could. And then also, if you're a K teacher with the one curriculum was there, that's what you looked at with your colleagues. You were able to go through that. And Jody Clark, again, the high quality curriculum coordinator, created a survey whereby the teachers had to look at our priorities, and they had to look at the curriculum and give their perspective on what vendor and what Wit and Wisdom or in the EL was doing a better job at looking at our priorities. And then on March, so that was all last 8th to the 12th, and then on March 15th, last Monday, for our professional learning day, the team reviewed and analyzed that survey data. So I showed this to you the last time, and if you look at that big red arrow, we are in a great place right now because they have come up with their favorite, so to speak. It's Wit and Wisdom. And so the next time you see me, right now today I have no numbers because Mary and I really thought that this would be a nice overview for everybody, and I'll come back to you once I can compare the EL numbers with the Wit and Wisdom and give you a 3-year and a 6-year, so you'll be able to look at that as a committee before you approve anything. But the Wit and Wisdom has 4 modules, again, just like EL, diverse topics, the social studies and science themes, authentic high-quality text sets, social emotional learning embedded for our multilingual learners, and scaffolded supports for everybody to access. And again, I will go more into what the GEOs are, decodable readers, for that foundational curriculum from K to 3. Again, for both math and EL, math at the middle school and ELA at the elementary school, there'll be a high priorities for our implementation and our learning for our teachers and unpacking during their common planning time. And this is an extra thing I'm throwing into this presentation, just to give you a heads up. Back when the legislature came through for the high quality curriculum, parallel to that, they passed the Right to Read Act. It's been a couple of years, and Rhode just gave us back, this beginning of this month, they gave us some guidance on the Right to Read Act. So it's been a couple of years, they recognize that. But as you can imagine, the legislature gives us the high quality curriculum, the Right to Read Act, a lot of different things that we're supposed to be doing. In order for them to provide guidance, it takes a little while to get all the correct guidance out there. So here it is. If you are a pre-K through 5 classroom teacher, or a special educator all the way from pre-K to 12, any reading specialist pre-K to 12, or any multilingual learner teachers, you will need to be proficient in the science of reading. And it's about 40 plus hours. So on top of your day, we need to figure out, and on top of rolling out the high quality curriculum, we also need to get you trained in the science of reading. If you are any other teacher, pre-K through 12 certified staff, you will be responsible for being aware of the science of reading, which takes about 8 to 10 hours. So right now, the Rhode Island Department of Ed is creating modules. It's going to take a while. It's going to take about a year to get the awareness. So in about a year, those teachers will be able to go through on their own, on our PD days, and be able to secure that. The science of reading, they've given us a list of about 8 different providers. So they gave us this legislature, but they didn't give us any money with it. And that's usually the way it goes. But we will assure you that our teachers will be proficient in the science of reading. And right now, just so you know, there was some grant money at Rhode, and I want to let you know that our administrators jumped on board, and we were able to get, we have 2 different groups, one from Quinnesset and one from Forest Park. And then we also have the administrator over at Stony Lane was accepted in the program as well. So we already have people ahead of the curve that are working on this. And so that's where we are really with the science, the Right to Read Act, and and I will come back with more information. And then finally, last week in our educators memo, field memo from Rhode, they just wanted us to know that they presented on March 9th to their Council on Secondary and Elementary Education that our standards, which many of you must know about since 2010, we've had the Common Core State Standards, and then Massachusetts ended up using a curriculum framework, and they ended up changing their tests. You might have seen that in the news a few years back, and they created the Nkhs. And then Rhode Island, we did a similar thing, working off of the Massachusetts framework, and we created our RICAS. So now that the Massachusetts has their different set of standards, Rhode Island took this past year as well, and they had surveys and multiple public forums. And what they've decided to do now is they've called it the Rhode Island Core Standards. So the Rhode Island Core Standards, we're going from Common Core State Standards to the Rhode Island Core Standards. And what does this mean on a larger view is nothing. It really means I don't want any teacher or any parent being that we're going to be shifting a huge amount. What we're really saying is there was 3 key things that they decided to talk about. It provides clarity of language, it provides clarity of examples, and it also gives additional or expanded standards. So again, I sent out an email to the teachers today just to let them know about it. I let them know that we are in a COVID year and we are working at capacity this year. And next year, when we have a little bit more breathing room, we will do a nice little crosswalk and everybody will feel comfortable for it. But I wanted you to all know tonight that we will be moving in that direction and making sure that we do a crosswalk in North Kingstown. And that's all I have for everybody. If you have any questions, I'd like to thank you for your time once again. And I will be back in a few weeks to finalize.
Thank you, Dr. Manzeri. Any questions? Okay, I know a whole lot of work has been going into this. I want to thank you and your team for putting everything together and, navigating the changing standards, unfunded mandates, and all of the fun things that, come along with the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you,
team.
Dr. Manzeri, you and your team. Thank you so much for all your work. I think it's clear to the school committee. I hope it's clear to the community. This is a year like no other in terms of rolling over a curriculum, and these next few years are going to be like that. So in that respect, it's really nice to have the leadership from Rhode kind of pushing us in this direction. And sometimes it seems a little overwhelming, but there really is a lot of really nice upgrades for our curriculum in various subjects and at all grades. So but it makes a heck of a lot of work for Dr. Manzeri, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So next we have the presentation on student government from our student representatives. So Jacob and Owen, I'll turn things over to you. You guys, all right, sorry, I thought I did that before. Let me fix you. Better?
Thank you.
There we go, sorry. I thought what I'd done before would stick. I guess it didn't.
I don't think I'm able to share my
Oh, I
my
can fix
screen.
that too. All right, one moment. I think that should let you. Let me know if you can't.
Yep, there we go. Okay. Can you see this? Okay. All presenting this today about our student government at Nkhs. The way we operate is we have ourselves split up into 5 different subcommittees this year. That changes from year to year, the number of subcommittees and what they are. We determine our goals for the year at the start, and we vote on which subcommittees we'll have, and then appoint a chairperson. Our first subcommittee is a school safety subcommittee, and our chairperson is Senior Alex Ong. Then we have sustainability. Our chairperson is Senior Jack Belmore. COVID-19, chairperson is Junior Brooke Thompson. Technology, our chairperson is Senior Calvin Higgins. And student wellness, we have co-chairs, Senior Beckett Bessinger and Junior Amanda Nicholas. School safety subcommittee's key concerns for this year. The first issue was the parking lot. There was an issue with parents cutting through the senior lanes, situations where students were nearly getting hit because people were just not careful enough in the parking lot, parking in spots that were meant for seniors, but that issue was fixed. Dr. Morse and Mr. Anderson took care of that, spoke with parents, and made sure they only went through the designated lane. The traffic issue,
Oop, that was my mistake, Jacob. Sorry, I was trying to let someone in and I accidentally muted you. You should be back. Sorry about that.
all right. With the school safety subcommittee, we also pair in logistics with that. So logistics with the parking lot, not just safety issues. For the past 4 years that I've been at North Kingstown, the traffic with the parking lot in the morning and afternoon has been very tight. Takes a while to get through, get in and out. And a lot of students spoke with Owen and I and told us that one of their biggest concerns is the traffic with the parking lot. And we're hoping there's some way for us to clear that issue up, maybe with a reconfiguration of the parking lot somewhere down the line. Scheduling changes, also with logistics. There were concerns with the all virtual schedule and the hybrid schedule, which isn't a concern anymore because we won't be going all virtual, but there was a difference in the way the schedule worked from the all virtual to the hybrid, where they didn't line up and students preferred the hybrid schedule over the all virtual schedule. And then other issues that recently were advocated for were those parking lot solutions mentioned previously, and vape and smoke detector installations in the bathrooms, which we have now. Next subcommittee is the Sustainability Subcommittee. Short-term goals are a campus greenery project, which we discussed briefly with Dr. Auger. The goal here would be to get a lot of trees and things planted around the campus, make it look a lot nicer, just in general, make it look more environmentally friendly, get people outside and working together to put that together. We're thinking possibly there's room to put some sort of garden type thing in the bus circle that students could participate in. Another issue, converting from the current styrofoam lunch trays to compostable lunch trays. A lot of students, when normally we have lunch, can be somewhat careless and they can throw their styrofoam lunch trays away in the wrong areas. And if we had compostable lunch trays, then that would make it more environmentally friendly. And then going along with that would be to implement some compostable straws, cups, and other eatware, and gradually move away from the plasticware. Long-term goals would be to power the North Kingstown School Department's buildings, specifically the schools, through other alternatives such as solar and other renewable energy. Not only to be more environmentally friendly, but a conversion to solar would also be lower energy bills for the school department long term. And campus greenhouse improvements and expansion as well. And some of that goes in hand with expansion of the CTE programs at the high school. Currently, we have the engineering, business, and music programs. And students think it would be good if we could expand into something in the science field, particularly in something such as biology or something containing biology, chemistry, and physics, something like that, for students that gravitate more towards that field. COVID-19, I'm going to hand over to Owen here. I'm not sure if he's unmuted or not.
He should be, but let me double check. Should be fine now. There you go. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Blaswell. So COVID-19, some of our key concerns for COVID-19 right now is scheduling fluency, which Jacob talked about earlier. Some more proactive COVID-19 safety enforcement and how a NKHS musical would work, fans and such, which we've heard a little bit about so far. Some of our past concerns were bathroom and washing stations availability, which of course we know how that works this year, and how our sporting events would work. On the technology side, some of our past concerns were upgrading Chromebooks for the freshman and sophomore class, and that has since been resolved. We have no current concerns, and of course with Mr. Waterman's earlier presentation, we know a lot more about that as well. Long term, we just want to continually upgrade and strengthen the wireless network and just keep upgrading our technology as much as possible. Student wellness. The student wellness purpose is to expand the representation of the student union, meaning we have a high amount of upperclassmen. We want to expand it to lowerclassmen and expand it to all areas of the school, not just a small section. So that's just the diversification of the union. Some recent accomplishments that we've had were school-wide elections, which are supposed to be approved by the administration, which would allow every student in the school to vote on a president of for next year, and we increased the requirements to become president as well. Some of our current projects we are working on is a smaller student government at the middle school level, student-led discussions on school improvements, and student surveys. I'm going to pass it back to Jacob for this last slide.
I'm quickly just going to touch on the school-wide elections as well. The current requirement to run for president for Owen and I was we had to attend 2 student union meetings, but the election was only members within the student union. So we opened the election up through a vote of the members so that the entire school would vote on the next president, since we feel we want to be more representative of the entire student body. But we made it so that presidential candidates had to attend a semester's worth of meetings, which is 8 student union meetings, and 2 school committee meetings, considering they would be the future school committee student representative. So the hope is that they would understand what they would be doing as a representative to the school committee. And since this presentation was made, we also added class representatives that will be elected by the student union members. So there will be freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior representatives, and the election of the communications director rather than appointment. So those secondary officer positions, such as communications and class representatives, will take place at the meeting after the presidential election. Finally, we have the student union requests. The students would appreciate if the school committee, school department, and the administration, as well as lower level administrations, would look into some more environmentally friendly alternatives to the current plasticware and disposable lunch trays, some more environmentally stable forms of energy, which will also lead to decreased expenses long-term in the budget, and some more parking lot and safety efficiency revisions. And that is all we have.
Thank you very much, both of you. Any members have any questions on the presentation?
I do.
Sorry, I didn't see who that was.
Jen.
Okay, Jen, sorry.
Thank you guys for the presentation. It's great, and I appreciate hearing the student perspective. I did have one question, just because in light of the fact that there's been a push from the students to return to the school full-time. It just seems interesting that one of the concerns is COVID-19 safety enforcement. If you could just elaborate on that, I'd appreciate it.
Right, so that wasn't necessarily about the reopening. That was particularly making sure that when you are in the building, you're making sure you're being conscious of your possibility to deliver to someone else. So making sure mask wearing is being enforced, making sure people aren't sharing things with each other, like putting their mouths on things that other people are putting their mouths on, things like that.
So it's more of a concern from the students to make sure that they're following the rules versus a concern that the school is not enforcing.
Right,
Okay.
right. It's
Right.
we're making sure, we want to make sure that teachers are watching more carefully that students are properly wearing their masks, etc.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions? Okay, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. I can tell you spent a lot of time on it, and we very much appreciate the opportunity to hear from you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you both.
Okay.
Mr. Glassball, one more recognition I just want to make before we move on to the next item.
Sure.
I don't have a long list of winners, but this past week and weekend, the Deca Competitions have happened. This is Mr. Garland's group, and really a group that is sponsored by the entire North Kingstown Business Department. And once again, they've done exceptionally well statewide. If this were a regular year, this would mean a whole group of students would be going to Anaheim for a national competition. There will be a national competition, but obviously it will not be one that you travel on an airplane for. So the details are in, the communications coming from the high school this week. But suffice it to say that North Kingstown was exceptionally well represented. A lot of first, second, and third place finishers, and a lot of people that will be moving on to the national competition. So congratulations to Mr. Garland and to all of our students in the DECA program for making us so proud once again. Thank you.
Congratulations, great work. Okay, next we have citizens' comments. So just as a reminder, we do ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address at the beginning so that we can have that for the record. And for those who haven't done it before, what we would ask is using the participants tab of Zoom, if you could hit the raise your hand button, and then I will recognize people in the order that Zoom presents them to me. We'll give a moment for anyone who'd like to speak. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so, wait, one, hold on. Jacob, you raised your hand, so I will give you the opportunity to speak.
I just wanted to say, on behalf of the students, we really appreciate the email that Dr. Ojay sent out earlier in the week to parents and teachers about the reopening after April break and the likelihood that prom and graduation will be held. Again, I want to reinforce how crucial these are to students' mental health and really make sure that we're able to go through with these things. As well as the possibility of having, at senior prom, having juniors come to senior prom if they're going with someone who's a senior, or at junior prom, having a senior or sophomore go with them, things like that, and making sure that parents can come to the graduation, at least 2 parents. And the only concern that a lot of students had was with reopening right after April break, we wonder if anyone will go on vacation during April break, and there should be a 1-week buffer from April break. So use April break to set the rooms up, and then wait 1 more week to bring everyone back, just because personally myself and all the other students would hate to see some sort of breakout the week after we come back and then lose graduation and prom again. We've been waiting years closed down, so I think we can handle 1 more week in order to secure a prom and a graduation.
Thank you very much. Next person I see is Tanya Carroll. And there you go.
Okay, good evening. Sorry, it took me a while to figure the raise hand button. So, Kanya Carroll, 118 Pinecrest Drive. So, I wanted to respond to Dr. Auger's email from March 19th, in which he notified the Nkhs school department parents and staff of the plan for, actually the high school parents and staff of the plan for a full in-person return to the for high school students beginning April 26th. And I'm very excited that the staff is all immunized. That's great news. And that means that we've met one of the criteria for changing COVID protocols. So that's great. But the faculty and staff comprise a minority of the total population of the high school. A large majority of the students will not be immunized as of April 26th. Students under 16 won't even be eligible, which means that most freshmen and probably a large portion of the sophomores, those 16 and over will have had only a week of eligibility since April 19th. So most of the juniors and seniors will also not have had their first shot. And even those who obtain an appointment will have only received that first shot. And the very first of those students will not be fully immunized until late May at the earliest. And for most, full immunization will not be reached before the start of the summer break. So adding this up, the majority of the high school population will not be immunized as of April 26th. And many of the students will travel during April vacation, as was just noticed, increasing the probability that some will have been exposed and are carrying COVID into the building. So a case can certainly be made that the improved situation warrants giving students the option to return to the building full time. But the situation has not sufficiently improved to remove the option for students to continue with opportunities to attend class remotely. So first, some families will not want students to return to a more densely populated school before they're fully immunized. And second, COVID cases will continue, so some students are going to need to quarantine and keep up with school from home. And then third, students experiencing any symptoms should know that they can attend remotely on any given day, and that may well be included in the plan that was recently announced, but it was not articulated as such. So in summary, I would just request that it be stated clearly in any guidance to the community that students do still have the option to attend distance learning in the event of, one, a family is uncomfortable with a densely populated school, or two, a student has to quarantine, and three, if a student exhibits any of the COVID symptoms. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next person we have is Kim Lannerly. So let me get the right button here. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just muted on my end. Hey, Greg. I just want to comment. I just want to thank the school.
You can just state your name and address. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kim Lanaway. I live at 47 Sylvan Court in Saunderstown. I just want to just quickly say thank you to Dr. Auger and Dr. Mancieri and the whole school committee for looking at the data, for taking the new guidelines immediately into account, and for putting forth a plan to open the school full time. I hear what the previous parent said and what the student said, but you guys have in place a protocol for people to get tested if they go on vacation. Going on vacation doesn't necessarily mean you are any more exposed than if you're at home. In fact, I myself find that when I go on vacation, I'm more with just my family than when I'm home. I'm with a lot more of my friends. So I don't think it necessarily does provide an avenue for more COVID, but I think that, again, you have protocols in place. I applaud you for opening the school, and I certainly think that we should not be extending April break because some people are going on vacation. Certainly everybody isn't going on vacation. People that don't feel comfortable with COVID aren't going on vacation, so they may choose to keep their kids home anyway. But thank you again, and we appreciate that you guys are keeping up with what's going on and putting the kids first.
Thank you. Next person I see is Lori Duffy. You should be able to. Yep, gotcha, thank you.
My name is Lori Duffy, 88 Haverhill Ave. It's been a while since I've been at a school committee meeting, so if this is not the time to be commenting on this, just let me know. But I'm seeing further down in your agenda One of the items is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Special Subcommittee. And so I wanted to just talk briefly, both as a resident of North Kingstown and also a member of the Toward an Anti-Racist North Kingstown group, how much I am in support of this subcommittee happening in our community for a couple of different reasons. One is that this is happening across the state. Other school committees and other towns are doing this, and I don't want North Kingstown to be left behind. We should be a leader in the state. We're a leader in so many things, and I'm hoping that we can be a leader in this as well and getting the subcommittee going. That's one. Number two, there's no downside to it. Having people as part of this subcommittee who are passionate about it, who understand what the research is saying, and who can frankly do some of the footwork for the school committee on this and bring forward some recommendations. There's just no downside to that. It's a win for our entire community. I also think it's important to send the message to the students in North Kingstown who are part of the BIPOC community, that they are important to us. And that we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that their voices are heard, to make sure that they're represented. And the other thing is, speaking for myself, when I graduated high school, when I went to college, I was shocked at how much I didn't learn in high school. I remember feeling cheated that there was an entire history that I had completely missed, because the history that I had learned in high school was watered down and was not complete. And so our students in North Kingstown should be heading out into the community, into the world, really knowing what the world is about, and going off to college or going off to their jobs or going out of North Kingstown, hopefully, with a much better understanding of what the world is than what they have right now. So kudos to the school committee for taking this on, proposing it, and I'm a huge support of that, and I'm excited to hear what the next year will hold regarding that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next person I have is Carlos Hernandez.
Hi, my name is Carlos Hernandez, and I live at 1259 Lafayette Road. I also wanted to comment on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Special Subcommittee, and honestly, I don't think I can really add to what Lori so eloquently stated. So I just wanted to show my support and just echo why I think this is a great idea to implement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is C. Trask. I only know what it says, so.
Hi, my name is Christine Trask. I live at 94 Laurel Ridge Lane, and I just want to echo what some people have been talking about in the way of really trying to respect and support students in all different walks of life, both in terms of sort of racial issues and equity, but also the student voice during COVID, and understanding that, again, different families will have different comfort levels, but trying to also recognize what a year this has been for some of our seniors, and really doing all we can to try to give them important information so that they understand what the challenges are and what sorts of choices are being made. I think one of the things that goes a long way for respect is really open communication, and so the more we hear from the school, it really, really helps us a lot. And so I also really appreciated Dr. Auger's message, giving us some sense of some of the things that are going on, because I think that's just so helpful to see what people are thinking about. We know that they're not easy choices. We know that things can't always be promised, but it really helps a lot to see those discussions and see what's being thought about. And I really appreciate the willingness to consider the students' voice and what they're really interested in this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And next I see Michelle Jarasol.
Hi everyone, Michelle Jarasoli, 635 Nantucket Road, very close, correct? Parent at the high school, business owner in North Kingstown, member of the advisory team for the Towards an Anti-Racist North Kingstown, and also bringing awareness of not just statewide but also county-wide work being done at the Healthy Bodies, Healthy Minds, Healthy Communities Steering Committee, which has as one of its policy platforms eliminating systemic racism, and I know Dr. Auger is also on that steering committee. So there's great work being done. I want to voice my support for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Special Subcommittee. I think it is very important for this committee to have a team of research experts who can advise and counsel based on what is going on statewide and across the country. We don't want to be left behind in addressing not just racial disparities, but also disparities of all students who are on the margins. So, you know, from a curriculum, from a training, from staff selection, there's so much work to be done. We want to make sure that children of all ethnicities, genders, sexual orientations, every student feels comfortable, welcome, and safe in all of our schools at every level. So once again, I voice my support for the creation of this special subcommittee.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised. I'll give one moment just to see if there's anyone else. And I don't see any others. Okay. Thank you everyone for speaking. So on with our agenda. Next item would be Dr. Auger with the superintendent's report.
Mr. Blasball. So later in the meeting, we'll talk a little bit more the details about the calendar and about the special subcommittee. But right now, I'd just like to spend my superintendent's report talking about the letter that I sent last week and, you know, what kinds of things, you know, the approach that we're taking. As things stand right now, we do not have an updated Department of Health guidance playbook. They call it a playbook for schools. And what we are told to anticipate, could be in the next few days, could be next week, would be an update to that playbook, which would be in line with what you may have seen from the CDC about 3 feet, except in school communities where, you know, there's kind of, you know, the COVID, it seems to be raging. We're not in that kind of a situation. So that is at every level, elementary, middle, and high school. And also we're expecting that bus capacities will be increased with this new guidance. I don't know the very specific details on all of that yet, but I have been in meetings where I've heard the thinking, and it all sounds pretty promising. I've also been in meetings to talk about, you know, how to go about having a prom, how to go about having a graduation. These things don't necessarily lend themselves to, when you think of the strict guidelines that we've been living under for the year, with 6 feet of social distancing at all times and you know, masks and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of people at the Department of Health. There's also an organization called the Educational Operations Center. It's kind of a hybrid group of, it actually includes people from the National Guard to help solve problems, but it includes a lot of people from the Department of Education and the Department of Health. And, you know, invite superintendents. I've been part of this discussion to talk about, you know, what are their concerns. There are a lot of principals involved as well, you know, about how to go about, you know, doing a prom. And then there's, you know, the governor's level, which, you know, when you think about, you know, the wedding guidance that they put out, those kinds of event plans play into this too. So there's a lot of different voices coming together right now. These decisions don't always, they almost never happen as fast as you would want them to. I was hoping to have some firm guidance for tonight to make some more definitive announcements, but I don't have that yet. So I need to wait and see what that's going to include. And this could take a few weeks, you know, to get that in and to really, you know, make a plan that is responsible. And, you know, the comments made tonight, you know, I totally understand the concerns out there. And those are the same kinds of concerns that, you know, the leadership team, Dr. Morse and I have when we're discussing, you know, these kinds of plans. So I want you to know we're right there with you. And, you know, as soon as we know more, we will continue to communicate and keep you informed. But I also want to stress, and I stress this in the letter, and, you know, from the very beginning, I know that the decisions the school department has made, whether it's, the high school schedule, the middle and elementary schedules, just the way we've gone about this year has been amazing in terms of, how we needed to rethink everything from busing to teaching and learning to, how many kids can sit in one room and where you can eat and all of that kind of stuff. But every time, whether you like my decision or did not like my decision, it has been based on Rhode Island Department of Health guidance. And I want you to know that that is not going to change. So while I hear people say, from their perspective, oh, it's definitely not safe to come back that week, or it definitely is safe to come back that week. I understand the different perspectives because the media is full of different perspectives, and we're just human beings, and we're hearing, from various sources and taking in information of our own. The most important information to me is what's coming from the Rhode Island Department of Health. They are the experts in this state about how this should work, and I would be feeling negligent as a superintendent if I'm not following their guidance in going forward. So it doesn't matter less to me whether I personally think something is safe as whether Dr. Alexander Scott thinks it's safe and the leadership at Rhode. So I'm gonna, no matter what, we're gonna be following what they're recommending for us. And that includes, every decision we've made so far. It includes the Binex testing that we have. It's voluntary for our students, mandatory for our athletes. And so it from the start it's been that way, from, throughout the year it's been that way, and looking ahead, that's the way I intend to continue. For the fall, we're still moving along, and this has been mentioned during the budget process as well. We're still moving along with the idea that we're looking to be back, pretty much fully in person at that point, and probably, wearing masks to get started. We don't know for sure, to what extent students would be vaccinated at that point. But we're planning along those lines. Things could change. There could be a spike in cases, and Rhode tells us to do something differently, and we will follow suit if that's the case. But we are planning on that. People have emailed me and asked, what are you thinking about, the bus schedules for next year? The simple answer is, going back to, the 2019 and early 2020 schedules for, our school start times and busing and all that sort of thing. We've got to get back to that. And then we can start talking about, whether we need to look at any changes in the long term about, school schedules and that sort of thing, which I know a lot of us are interested in whether it's a pandemic or not. So that's pretty much all I have. I just wanted to stress that I'm not looking to, necessarily appease anybody or follow any particular media source. I'm looking to, work with the Rhode Island Department of Health because I believe, and I know a number of, local communities with us around the state feel, that's the most responsible way to go. So that being said, we do understand the importance of being in. We do understand the importance of these kinds of ceremonies, and we want them to happen. And that's the road we're going down right now, and we're going to do everything we can to make it work within the guidelines of the Rhode Island Department of Health. So that's what I have tonight, Mr. Blaswell. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Shea. I just want to take a minute of my own to sort of, you said a lot of what I was going to say, and I want to thank you for it. We, as school committee members, I think I can speak for everyone here, we get a lot of emails and phone calls and a lot of differing opinions. And we get both sides, and we hear it all. And, when you have one group asking you to do A and one group asking you to do Z, and you're trying to determine what the right answer is, all we can do is what Dr. O'Shea just said, which is to follow the guidance that's given to us by the Rhode Island Department of Education and the Rhode Island Department of Health. I think that's what we've done all throughout this process. I want to thank, the administration, Dr. O'Shea, your folks, every single teacher in the district, and every single staff member. We are at a point where we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Spring is coming. It's getting warm. We're all thinking about summer, and we're all thinking about, good times. And I want to continue on that path, and, you know, the success that we've had this year dealing with this unbelievably difficult situation is due entirely to the quality of the folks that we have in the school department. And on behalf of all the school committee, I think we all agree that we want to thank you all for all the hard work you're doing. But it's also, you know, it is not business as usual. It's not, okay, let's go. It's, you know, measured responses based on what the experts tell us to do, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And, you know, while that email talks about how the school department is making plans for a high school reopening, they are doing that. They're making plans so that if the new guidance comes out, they're ready to, you know, and there's so much more that goes into this than, you know, what you might realize. It involves moving all the desks around. It involves reworking the entire high school. Everything was undone to fit where we are now. Putting it all back is not an overnight thing, so it's going to take a bit of time and planning. They're working on that, but yet at the same time, you know, if the guidance from Rhode for some reason has some requirement that we're not able to, you know, implement back every day, then we're going to have to look at that. So we're hopeful and optimistic and waiting to see what, you know, the new playbook says, and hopefully it moves us forward. So I just wanted to make that point. Moving on to the more routine items on our agenda. First item is the consent agenda. Do any members have any items they would like to exempt from the consent agenda? Hearing none, if I could get a motion to approve the consent agenda. I have a motion from Ms. Hildebrand.
Second.
Second from Mr. Mather. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Next, we have the revised school committee calendar. I know we just did this, but it's a work in progress. It may very well change again. So Dr. Ajay, well first, if I could get a motion to approve the calendar submitted by the superintendent. I have a motion from Ms. Hildebrand.
Second.
And a second from Ms. Lima. So Dr. Ajay, I'll turn it over to you to explain what these changes would be.
Thank you. So at our last meeting, you actually approved our calendar, but we probably should have waited 2 weeks because the very next morning, or the very next day, guidance came out about solving one of the problems that we had. I think you remember that up front we had a couple of professional days that were sort of counting as school days, but had no intention of having kids going to school on those days, or even being asynchronous. This calendar solves that problem. Our contract and our regular calendar has 4 professional development days. Those are what you see in yellow. Those do not include students coming to school or doing any asynchronous learning, which makes total sense because the first day of school, according to this calendar, would come after those 4 days. The days that you see in blue, those are an option that Rhode put out the very day after we had our school committee meeting for professional development days for the staff that would also be asynchronous learning for our kids at home. And that really makes a lot of sense. What this does, when you combine the vacation days, really help people who work in this community but have kids in another, or vice versa. And so do the professional development days. These 4 blue days really help us in coordinating with the rest of the state. The 2 professional days that we have on the 1st and 2nd of September also coincide with statewide professional development days, where districts can use those if they wish. We choose not to, but they can. So there will be 6 days here where other districts are, and many of them are going through the same, high quality curriculum work and that sort of thing, will be hosting, professional development that we can coordinate with them on. And, that's a pretty popular thing for us to do, particularly when you think of the coordination that we always have with Jamestown, sometimes with Narragansett and other local communities. So that's going to help us there. And this calendar, has 180 days to it. The last calendar we had didn't really have that. And it also, I want to announce, I was a little hesitant about it last time, but the plan is if there is a regular snow day, that would be handled as a DL day. Now, if, and that plan that from all schools, that all students and parents would receive, would be, you know, if it's just, you know, regular snow and you have power and you can engage, that's what we're gonna do. If you do not have power, or your teacher doesn't have power, and then you have to go to an alternative plan for part or all of the day, there will be kind of an asynchronous assignment along with it. I still hold the authority and may have to exercise just having a regular emergency day if there's some kind of major catastrophe that hits North Kingstown, where we just can't do, you know, focus on asynchronous or anything. But I think we've seen that this can work, and we've also seen that the way we've organized it, it provides time for kids to, you know, get out there in the snow and play if they want. It's not like a full day, especially for the elementary, in front of teachers. So there's kind of a coordinated, you know, in front of the teacher time and some time that you can do on your own. This calendar, what was my last point? And this calendar also, the reason that it starts on the 3rd and not on the 7th, in years past we talked about starting after Labor Day. This year, the 7th is Rosh Hashanah, and all of our communities have been asked to not start school on that day if we don't have to. So we kind of compromised and went, for most of our kids, it will be the second day of school. And in the spirit of having our DEI subcommittee tonight, I think that's a pretty nice thing to put out there. So we will start on the 3rd, be a good chance for students to kind of come in, learn about their classes, and have a long weekend and come back, and then everybody will be in pre-K through 12 on the 7th. So I don't know if anyone on the committee has questions on any of this. As I mentioned last time, we also have the note at the bottom of the page about holiday observance. If someone needs to observe a holiday that is not, you know, day off on our calendar, such as Rosh Hashanah, they will certainly be allowed to, and your teacher will work with you to make up any work that you may have missed, whether that's a test, a project, homework assignment, or, you know, the classwork that you've been assigned. So any questions?
I just have a quick one. Looks like the last day of school is a little later in this calendar. That's because we're now at 180 days.
Yeah. So the first, as you recall, it was the 1st and 2nd of September. We were kind of counting as 2 school days. That does not count anymore. So now we're starting 2 days later. That's basically what makes it. It was the 16th. Now it goes to the 20th. I would have loved it if we could have ended on a Friday, but it's just, you know, if we're doing everything else and following the state, that's where it lands. So.
Any other questions?
And if we do need to make up days, those 5 days in green at the end are there for that reason. So we're still ending, you know, mid-June, which is a nice place to end. That's where you want to end. It would be a problem if we're ending, say, at the end of that week, which is similar to where we are this year because of the pandemic and starting later. We're ending, you know, later in June this year. I'd like to avoid that and try to stick to the middle if we can.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, we have the creation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Special Subcommittee. If I could have a motion to approve that item. Motion from Ms. Lima.
Second.
And a second from Mr. Mather. So you all got the policy in your packet, and it's also in the public agenda. So essentially, we're creating a subcommittee to take a look at you know, diversity, equity, and inclusivity within our school department. And could you scroll down a little bit to the bottom, Dr. I think you're sharing, or who's sharing. So just to make the point of what that will be is the superintendent. It's going to be chaired by a member of the North Kingstown School Committee and a member of the Central Office Administration. And it's going to include a total of 10 community members to include administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, and students, and will seek to include diverse perspectives. They'll be proposed by the superintendent and then approved by us as members of the school committee. So does anyone have any questions on the creation of the subcommittee?
Mr. Blaswell, if I could just kind of introduce the topic. So, you know, as a few people very eloquently said, particularly Ms. Duffy. I remember Ms. Duffy coming to us from the Washington County Coalition with some data points for us years ago, and nice to hear from you again. You know, this is something that our nation needs, our state needs, our district needs. And, you know, our district, you know, we have policies about, you know, things like diversity and not being discriminatory, but it's important to spend time to focus on these issues and to really make sure that we're capturing the perspective of all of the constituents of our community and really providing for our students and staff a really broad perspective of what it means to be a citizen of this country. And so it's just a nice thing to have a team of people with an interest and a passion for this work to keep an eye on items such as, you know, anti-racism, cultural competence, looking at our curriculum, looking at the kinds of practices that we have in everything that we do, and making some, you know, giving us some advice on, you know, what they think that we should be doing differently if and, you know, and when they see issues that arise. So it just so happened that this week, this is the national publication for superintendent's organization in the country, and this issue is on racial equity. It's on, there are about 5 or 6 articles in it. I know the National School Board magazine is also fresh with this issue this month. And, you know, so we're not alone in taking on this topic right now, and with good reason. And I know that in this school administrator magazine that I held up, one of the articles is about a team of local districts right in Eastern Connecticut. Some of the superintendents that I know, and who are teaming up to, you know, focus on this work and with their districts. And I anticipate doing that with other districts in Rhode Island and with a really good team here in North Kingstown and getting people engaged in this work. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any questions? Yeah. So, hold on. Ms. Silverbrand first.
Well, I was just going to say thank you. I'm absolutely in favor of this. Thank you to everybody who worked on this proposal. I think it's great. My question is just a technical question around forming a special subcommittee and how that works. Is it a time-limited thing? Is it something that we just form as the school committee and it functions until it doesn't anymore? I guess I'm just curious how that works.
Essentially what I envisioned was we formed the subcommittee. It doesn't have an expiration. It, you know, has a pretty specific task to report back to us on policies and things. And if the school committee determines that it has fulfilled its task and purpose, we could disband the subcommittee at that time. It's a little different than, you know, our policy subcommittee or our,
right.
You know, there are certain subcommittees that we have to have and they are going to be there forever. This one, you know, if it finishes its work, it could be disbanded at that time or continue on. That's up to us to decide.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Ms. Lima, you had a question? Or? Yep.
I just wanted to say a couple things, if that's okay.
Certainly.
So I know it's late, but this is important, and I just kind of wanted to touch on a couple things. If anybody has any questions on where this comes from, you know, you can touch base with me after. You know, Dr. Ojay mentioned the School Board Association publication, and I want to start with a quote from that. It says in the edition, you know, while conversations about equity can sometimes become politically charged, educational equity is not a partisan issue. Educational equity is first and foremost about ensuring that school districts fulfill their core mission, which is successfully educating all students so that they're prepared to be productive and engage their students. You know, I think that this proposal lays the groundwork to acknowledging our history, celebrating our potential, and fostering a climate that honors and encourages diversity, equity, and the unique character of all our students. I'd like to thank Dr. Ojay and Dr. Mansieri for their work in helping to put this proposal together. You know, changing policy and procedure is one thing, but changing climate and culture is another. And to do that, you really need to get true buy-in from the people who are charged with making the decisions. And, you know, I feel after my conversations with them that they recognize the importance of the work for all the children within the district. You know, as some of the people who spoke alluded to, this proposal is not revolutionary. Barrington has had a DEI subcommittee since 2016. Chara Hill implemented an anti-racism task force in 2020. South Kingstown also had the BIPOC advisory board that they created over the summer. You know, in a town like North Kingstown, where the population is 95% white, my guess is most people haven't had a direct experience with racism in our town or in our schools, and might say it's not an issue here, but, you know, they'd be wrong. And it's important to remember that as white people, the lens through which we're seeing things is not the one that matters. Talking about race can be uncomfortable and can put people on the defensive. You know, to be told you need to be anti-racist when you don't consider yourself a racist to begin with can automatically raise a wall. So it's important to define what we mean when we're talking about racism in order to avoid this. You know, we're not talking about individually participating in an act of hate when we talk about being a racist. So conversely, not committing racist acts doesn't mean you're an anti-racist. It's not enough just to be passively non-racist anymore. You have to be actively anti-racist. When we talk about being anti-racist, we're talking about the conscious decision to make frequent, consistent, equitable choices daily. And these choices require ongoing self-awareness and self-reflection as we move through life. You know, when we understand racism as a system that we've been raised in and that its impact is inevitable, it's not really a question of good or bad, it's just it's there, I've been socialized into it, and what am I going to do about it? You know, this was originally proposed as an anti-racism task force only, and I was really happy to see the mandate widen to include the issues of sexual orientation and gender, among other things as well. As the rise in violence against Asian Americans shows, defining racism or other isms as only extending to one group of people is not okay. You know, race is part of our public conversation and integrated into so many aspects of our world. Young people want to and should be part of that conversation no matter what their race. You know, there are studies galore that show why anti-racism reform is needed in education. This is not just an issue for primarily BIPOC population schools. This is an issue for all schools. As Maya Angelou said, you know, when we know better, we do better, and we know better now, so let's do better. I have a quote at the bottom of my email that goes out to everybody that says, diversity is a fact, equity is a choice, inclusion is an action, belonging is an outcome. And I believe that everybody in this district has the same end goal of wanting the children we're serving to experience the joy of learning, but also to feel seen, loved, and valued. And I'm confident that the subcommittee is going to help us get there. So I appreciate this being put forward, and obviously it's probably clear that I support it wholeheartedly. So I just wanted to share those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Then if not, we have a motion and a second, so all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We just need to make a note, Dr. Ojay, we're going to need to eventually have you make that proposal to us as to the membership, and then we also need to, as a school committee, appoint a member to be on that committee, so we need to put that on our next agenda.
Absolutely, thank you. And I just want to remind the committee and everyone that this was identified, or, you know, this is part of an item to identify these kinds of issues and address them as part of the school committee goals from the fall this year. So later in the spring, we're going to do more to make presentations to show you how, you know, other goals that the school committee has identified and how they are, you know, coming to fruition in the spring. This is one of those items and how that's coming along. So I think it's worth mentioning that it's in line with our goals. It's not something that we just kind of came up with yesterday morning. So thank you.
Very much. Next we have under unfinished business. I know Mrs. King's not here this evening, but I don't think we have anything to discuss on the 2021 school budget, the 122 school budget, or CIP bond or existing or future bond. New policies this week, and under new business, we just have some reports in your packet as a disposal notification, as well as our financial reports. I'd like to point out that we do publish our our monthly check registers due to a comment from a school committee member years and years ago, not just alphabetically, but also the biggest checks on the top and then going down to the smallest. For anyone who'd like to see, where things are going, as well as our reconciliations and our our budget reports. Unless there are any questions on those reports, we've reached the end of our agenda, and I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. A motion from Mr. Mather. Do I have a second? Second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion? There's no discussion on adjourn. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending. You all have a nice week, and until we see you again next time. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.